Just want to test my headphones. Can you all hear me? Nodding head. Thank you.
We can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair.
Afternoon. Do you mean me or Senator Hartley?
I mean you.
All right. Well, I want to just make sure everybody's on before we get rolling here.
Yeah, I haven't seen Senator Hartley yet.
It's okay. Let's just give it a minute. I just want to make sure everybody's sort of here and ready to go. Thanks to everybody for being here today. We appreciate you, even if it doesn't seem that way. All right, well, Susan, shall I kick off?
I just want to double check. I know
Okay.
that Senator Hartley's aide Ashley is on. Ashley, is the senator joining us?
Hi, Sue. Yes, she will be joining. It may be technical difficulties. I did send her the Zoom link just now.
Okay, thank you, Ashley.
All right, then we will hang out for just a second.
Bree and Kyle, do you have is everyone from the DECD team on that's going to participate? Are you all ready to go?
I think
Saw some
so.
head shaking, so yes.
Do we see Matt?
I'm here.
Matt's on.
Okay, then we're ready to rock.
Okay, so
I don't want to jump the gun.
Hello.
Howdy, Madam Chair.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Just waiting on Senator Hartley.
and here she comes.
Perfect.
Who are we talking to today?
DECD up first.
Hello. Good afternoon, all. Oh, hey, Eleni.
I made it. Miraculously.
You look well.
Do you want to kick off?
Sure.
Okay, great.
Thank you. I see Matt is with us and Kyle, and of course, the unknown Brandon McGee. Welcome all. And so thank you. We are swimming in your responses, but grateful to have them. So I'm thinking it might be most efficient if you can just thumbnail walk us through. Oh, I'm sorry, Paul, I missed you too. Good to see you. and of course, Dave. If we can walk through those responses kind of in abbreviated fashion, and members have questions, they will raise their hands. And David Kors is with us. And what is for the honor that we owe having David with us?
I believe since our operating line item falls under DECD, we can answer any questions you might have about MRDA.
Okay, you're back at it. Yeah.
Which I'm not allowed to call Murda anymore.
I'm gonna
Right.
still call it Murda.
There might be a little change in the works. We'll see, but I'll entertain Murda for now.
Yes, my caucus kept thinking I was talking about homicide.
And Madam Chair, for the DECD team, screen sharing is enabled. So if you would like to pull up the document and walk people through the document, you're free to do so.
That's probably going to help everybody since there were a lot of submissions. So we'll share.
Sure.
Is that okay? Who's heading this up? Matt?
Yep. So good afternoon, everybody. Matt Puglisi, Deputy Commissioner at DECD. And as it's great to have the opportunity to come back and have further conversation with you all today. And we have the DECD team here, as well as SEC and MRDA and Office of Workforce Strategy as well. So we have this up here. And so just so that we're not reading what we have in writing, we'll kind of just go through piece by piece and then ask each of the team members to kind of address any specific questions. So I think, Anthony, if you're here and if you want to take statewide marketing here first.
Happy to. Thank you, Matt. Hello, everyone. Good to see you. So the tourism marketing spend year over year, this has both been what has been approved through the general fund, specifically the statewide marketing line item within the tourism fund, as well as supplemental federal funds that we have received both through the American Rescue Plan as well as an $8.8 million grant that we received from EDA. So that orange block that you see there through FY23 through 25 is all a combination of those. We do have those numbers broken down further. Correct, Kyle? That is in here? If it isn't, we have it available. Don't want to waste your time there. And so with this year, all of the federal funds, including the EDA grant, have been fully expended. And so 4.5 million is what has been proposed by Governor Lamont.
Sorry, Anthony, I just found the unmute button. So yes, we do have this broken down, happy to share, but essentially, we had these carry forward and federal dollars that added 23 million in additional statewide marketing funding from starting in fiscal year 22 through 25.
Thank you. So if someone could talk to me about the Convention and Sports Bureau information that we have been receiving. They have been noticed that under the present budget that's before us, that their funding will terminate. They say that they will not be able to go forward as of the end of the fiscal year this year.
Absolutely, Senator. So Convention and Sports Bureau has historically been funded through the Office of Statewide Marketing and Tourism through the statewide marketing line item. And so that is, of course, the same budget that we use to put on events, do advertisements, support our state websites, everything under the sun that you see that we do. It's the same line item. So as a result of the resources being what they are, from a strategic sense, our office would much rather do two things very well and support the continued momentum of bringing visitors into the state rather than doing 5 things poorly. We believe that the economic impact will be significantly greater. So we have shared that information with Connecticut Convention and Sports Bureau, as well as the fact that should they not subsist after the next fiscal year, that work will not drop off. So both through a combination of different calculations, as well as just knowing our capacity internally. should they not continue on next year, the work of receiving RFPs and then providing the information and connections out will continue to happen through our office, and that will not fall off. That is not money that is going to go away.
Okay, so you say, but do you have additional staff to do this? You're going to absorb it within your function, Anthony? And I don't know what your FTEs are, but I don't see a plan for this.
Yes, ma'am. So we do have a plan that is in place. It is a combination of current staff that we already have, as well as contractors through our vendor partners that will cover that in place. Happy to provide further detail in terms of the capacity and the bandwidth and what CTCSB is currently doing versus things that we know can most certainly be absorbed both internally as well as with contractors.
Okay, so and maybe we need to have sidebar conversation here. Your characterization was that to focus on visitors versus doing 5 things poorly, and so I'm assuming that you have done some kind of ROI on this, and I guess that's important for us to know. I mean, every state has an entity such as this, where they're reaching out, bringing in conventions. Now, I know that market has changed substantially. However, we don't want to be flatlined here totally. And I would think that, our large venues might also, have a concern here.
Yes, absolutely. So I sit as DECD's representative on the Connecticut Convention and Sports Bureau Board. I have shared with them that there is a plan in place. So whether it's Bradley Airport, Mohegan Sun, Foxwoods, our external partners, that work will continue. We also, don't forget, we have the 3 legislatively mandated tourism districts. And these are partners who we have gained greater alignment with over the last couple of years in terms of their functions, not just what they're doing. But we have also shared with them that our office is strategically positioned, and I think we're in a better position now than we probably have been to remain top of the marketing funnel and to be able to then serve lower funnel, the sales functions, to the organizations as well as the districts. So I think in place, being able to rely on the districts to then pull in their businesses, as well as the partners that we have, the vendor partners, as well as our internal team members. I feel very confident that work will not fall off.
Okay, and Senator Austin has her hand up. But so you're telling me that our tourism districts are going to step up with regard to this. And if I understand their model, it is basically, it's promoting their district, but they don't do that cold call, which I thought is what the Sports and Convention Bureau does, where they're knocking on doors, where they're competing with other states to bring in events.
Yes, ma'am. So what that would be is, to get into the very specifics of it, our office and both our FTEs as well as the contract partner that we would have doing that, they would take care of that high level cold calling. Also, the fact of the matter is we get a very large amount of RFPs that come in. So that, that's submitted online, and a lot of that work is not about calling. That work is about pulling out numbers and then working with the partners to actually put together the full pieces of the proposal. So what we would be able to do is we would take care of all the cold sales pieces, and the partners would then be the ones pulling together the numbers and dealing with the individuals with the boots on the ground.
Okay, you're not telling me that, we're putting all our eggs in the basket of visitors versus large venues.
No, we are most definitely not doing that. But once again, let me pull back the lens for just a moment. So the one thing that you most definitely see on that budget chart that I showed was how the numbers have slowly but surely gone down. And so just as an example of what the results of that were, you see the impact on people coming to CT Visit. So all of our advertising is driven to ctvisit.com. And so just over the last calendar year, numbers on CT Visit have gone down nearly 30%. It's 29% and some change. So if we were going down from 7.6 with a combination of federal and state dollars down to 4.5, that's going to cut our ability to reach people in half. And so with advertising spend going through the roof last year for both elections as well as just general costs going through the roof, our dollars do not go nearly as far. So for us to remain competitive with states like Rhode Island, Massachusetts, New York, who are competing with for the same visitors, and these are teams with not only robust and aggressive marketing plans, they also have greater dollars. We need to put as much as we can there to even just remain competitive in just at people's fingertips. So we're not going to go flat, is what I'm saying with the big picture when it comes to either visitors or the larger events. And I think this plan gives us a little bit of the best of both worlds that we can with the resources that are being provided.
Okay, tough conversation on both either side. Yes, our chairwoman, Senator Austin.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Can you put the document back up again? And go to the right to scroll down just a tad file. Right here. So the return on investment relative to what we put into tourism is now up to 8-1. Is that what your latest latest ROI study shows, or is it not done yet?
No, ma'am, it is not done yet. The 8-1 is a national average of 200 different states and cities around the nation. That is the number so the organization that conducts this study, it's a combination, they're called Longwoods, and there's another one with Tourism Economics, and they share data. The 8-1 is the national average that they have provided us. We will have this number much later. My prediction at this point, while we are going to fall under the national average, I do think it is double digits in terms of percentage increase, higher than the 3-1.
So, I always think to go back up to Kyle to the chart here. So I have always never understood why we do so little relative to marketing our state, because we have excellent sites. We tend to avoid talking about them, in my opinion, to other states, to like I think we should be marketing in Pennsylvania, in New York, in Canada, any of the northeastern states, Vermont, Maine, New Hampshire. All of those states should be marketed heavily with the assets that we have here in the state. And I'm not just talking Eastern Connecticut assets, I'm talking broadly. Connecticut assets we used to do something related to an ice cream tour. We have so many breweries nowadays that, I don't drink beer, but I see that at least brewery beers. So I don't understand why we don't do more, because I think that the return on investment would be significant. We would see an increase in the meals tax receipts. We would see an increase in the hotel tax receipts. We would see an increase in receipts relative to museums and cultural sites that charge in a dollar amount for entry. But we don't think that that's important, and I really don't understand it. And you are, all due respect, you are a very talented person at this. You see things that other people don't see. And I think your talents, quite frankly, are not used to their full potential because we don't put dollars into this. I think that we'll see less use of large sites. To Senator Hartley's point here. Can you explain to me what the thought process is on why we don't think it's important to market a multi-billion-dollar business in the state of Connecticut?
Well, first of all, Senator, I want to say thank you for the kind words. I genuinely appreciate that. To answer your question directly, we do not so we see the value in marketing that, and we will continue to market that from an advertising and a traditional marketing perspective. And we will simply also be we'll be having conversations, one-on-one conversations, whether it's the convention center, Mohegan Sun, Foxwoods, my gosh, as many as there are in New Haven and Mystic and along the shoreline. No matter where it is, it's really about cultivating those relationships. And the only difference is those relationships would be happening through our office and with a partner as opposed to CTCSB. So once again, I think it is it's a very hard decision to be making. It's a rob Peter to pay Paul type of situation, and we are doing our very best with the resources that are provided to us.
I just, I think that we should be at $20 million a year. I've said this for years on a statewide marketing campaign. We can't play in the areas that other states play in right now. When Rhode Island is beating us, I don't know why we don't see how wrong that is. We did nothing for the 250th, nothing, $0 that are doing, kind of expanding on what the 250th will mean to the state. That's the Constitution state. I don't get it. And I'm glad that you brought up Mohegan Sun and Foxwoods, the business entities of the two federally recognized tribal nations. They don't stop spending on marketing. They recognize the value of marketing. It took us forever just to open up the stations, on the highways, because we didn't even want to have good bathrooms, for crying out loud. I really am quite surprised that this is not being looked at from a return on investment situation. So, I'm going to continue to push for more funding in this area. I am not in favor of us decreasing in any way our spend. And I really, I really think that we missed the boat on bringing more revenue into the state of Connecticut because we don't do this. So again, thank you. And I'm not just giving you a pat on the back. I truly marvel at what you can do with such a small amount of money. And just your way of looking at things is something that we need to expand upon. And I would like to take better advantage of your talents and do more there. So, and people will tell you, I don't easily give out compliments. So,
once again, thank you. I do take those, not only those words to heart, but I do appreciate your honesty and the direction that you have provided. And I think, by the way, you did touch on America 250. And I do want to make sure that this is on the record, so that way everybody is aware of this. So in terms of the commission itself and working hand in glove with them, while they are not, there is not state budget dollars associated with them. We do recognize that our website, that CT Visit, does get millions of visitors a year. So while our site was down nearly 30% last year, we still had 6.7 million people come to it. And so as part of what we have asked for from the governor's office, and they put forth as a bill, is the ability for our budget to be able to take in funds. And so that way the 250, we can get sponsors on that website. So whether it's somebody who wants a story or their logo on there in the bottom, and we can provide that funding to our partners at 250th. So that way they do have resources to be able to market the state as a place to come. So by no means is that something that we aren't thinking about whatsoever. we are maximizing what we can with the resources that we have.
So again, I just want to say, our site is down because we don't spend enough. Not because it isn't filled with good content. It's that we don't spend enough to promote it out there. And I appreciate putting free advertising for some of these, but every other state put millions of dollars into marketing and preparing for the 250th, and we did not. So I appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair. I might have other things for the Department of Economic and Community Development.
Yeah, no, this is a big topic, and it's hard to have it in nanobites. Thanks very much, Madam Chair, and to my co-chair, yes, Representative Cabros de Graal.
I'll try to be brief. I'm just going to go back at the conferences piece just for a second. So I understand that there's a plan, and I would love to see details offline so as not to take too much time today. But my concern is, like, do you have the staff to go to the conventions they have to go to in order to draw people here? Do you have the staff to follow up with the people who've already booked the conferences and the conventions and the sporting events and all of those things? I guess my concern is that as somebody who used to have to attend those things and work in those booths and how all that stuff worked, if you don't have somebody on the receiving end to make sure the questions are answered in a timely fashion, and they will pick other places in the future, they will cancel, they will take their business elsewhere, especially when we have such a good relationship with NCAA and all these things. I just any information as to what that plan might be after the fact would be awesome.
Representative, thank you for the thoughtful question. I do appreciate the fact that you've done the job in the past and the ins and outs of it. And so I'm going to give you a very direct answer. No, some of that is going to fall off. We do not have the staff, nor will we have the capability to send people to all of the same things that CTCSB is going to.
And I will say that goes back to what Senator Austin was talking about, is that it's really hard for us. I mean, I think I think it's about $500,000 in terms of budget that would be needed for that. And I think the ROI on that would be significant enough that we have to really consider that, because that is a crucial piece to getting people here. So in my mind, at least. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And before Representative Dillon has her hand up, but let me just say this. So we're achieving a savings here of 450K. Is that right, Anthony?
550. We increased their budget this last year. We did want to understand,
yeah,
both understand as well as they have staff that needs to not only pay their bills with increasing costs, but also they could go out and get jobs elsewhere. So we wanted to give them more money to retain those key folks while we had it. So with that being said, it's more than $500,000. We also have nearly $200,000 for an international salesperson. So that's another, let's say, 190. Plus, we also spend $100,000 a year in advertising for them. So it's all in closer to $1 million that would be saved.
Okay, so give us that breakdown, but in view of that savings, then it needs to translate to, the things that need to be done so as to not have these big gaps. And I think my colleagues have, pointed those out as well. So you've got that kind of savings, you're pumping it back into the general fund, but, we've got a big hole here, aside from a lot of other holes, quite frankly, on this particular agency. Thank you. And yeah, go ahead, Representative Dillon. We're speed talking. Sorry.
No, thank you. I'll try to. Hi, Anthony. I haven't seen you in a long time, but I don't think we've ever had this conversation. But I guess I wanted to think also about the smaller venues, meaning smaller than Mohegan, and whether or not, and I should know this, what our relationship is with your office and, let's say, an art gallery to get a story into social media or TV or so forth, that there's a big exhibit coming up. Is there a person who is tasked with that?
Yes, ma'am. So our office, when I came in here in 2022, excuse me, actually early 2023, I apologize. this office, they were stripped to bare bones. There have been retirements and jobs that were not filled. I believe that there were, including myself, 5 full-time people, and now we have 9. And so with that change, we have not only established this office so that way there is cohesion among marketing and branding and tourism, but they're all working together. And so I can share this with you after the fact. We have a document called Connecticut Collaborations, and it gives every single way. It's a 6-page long checklist, how venues, businesses, so it doesn't matter if you're an art gallery or you're a manufacturer, you can come to us with what you do and we can help you tell your story. So whether that's social media, news media, events, partnerships, all of that exists. And for example, I was just at the Windsor Chamber of Commerce this morning, and I provided these resources, and a lot of this, I've already received a dozen emails from folks telling us, okay, here's what we have. How do we put it into action? And so we do have staff members. We have a community engagement specialist. We have a industry engagement director who's putting on events and bringing businesses to the table. We also have our digital, our website person who just works on ctvisit.com all day long. And we also have 2 dedicated social media people. So I would like to think that the resources and availability, and not only that, but transparency with our team and our office is at a much greater level than it was during the pandemic.
Well, to follow up, Madam Chair, I haven't told you this story, but it really bothered me. At the time, years ago, I went to this wonderful exhibit at the Mattituck Museum, and it was important. It was John Kensett, who came from an old Connecticut family, went to New York, and then came back, and his last art, which was almost abstract, was painted outside Darien on Contentment Island. And it was those pieces, some of those pieces. Every single person who had signed the visitor's book ahead of us, and this is back when the department was staffed, was from New York, because New York Times had covered it, and there had been a TV lead-in about a Connecticut. Not one, then nobody in Connecticut covered it. It was the weirdest thing in the world, and I was excited about what was going on at Mattituck, but Connecticut wasn't getting the coverage about what they were doing, and that was in better times, theoretically, in terms of your staff. And I just wanted to mention, I'm going to think about, I guess I look at the office through that lens, are you using every possible, and do you actually know who has ties to Connecticut, why it's a great idea, why this is more of a story, because you can't do it every week for the same people. You have to think about the timing of it and when it's a special story,
Yes, ma'am. I appreciate you sharing that. I had a unique experience myself when I moved to Connecticut. So I worked in the governor's office, moved here in May 21, and I had to live in a hotel the first 2 weeks because my home, I wasn't ready to move in. So I walked in with all my stuff over my shoulders, and the people at the front desk, they said to me, "Are you moving in?" And I said, "Yes, I am moving in." And you know what they asked me? They said, "Why?" They asked me why. And so that was very formative for my experience, and not just my work in the governor's office, but here in this role. And so I think there is a mentality that exists. And I do believe that our work, it's not just about spreading word about Connecticut, but I believe it's about bringing people together. It's not 169 towns, it's one state. It's being one state. And so not only giving them the resources to share that pride, but also giving them the capability to express that. And so I really did want to make sure that everybody that we meet and everybody who we can actually touch has the chance to be able to tell their story as part of the greater Connecticut story. And so actually you'll see next week, we'll be putting out a press release. So we do an annual brand study year after year to understand how people are feeling about the work that we're doing. And you'll see in this. So we've been doing it since 2012. State pride is at an all-time high since we started this in 2012. State pride jumped 25% in 1 year. in this. So we went from 49 to 61%. That the state average over the last 13 years since we started doing this is 45%. So being at 61% now, I do believe that we are stemming the tide, not just in terms of how people are feeling, but my genuine hope is it's coming from a lot of the work that you all are doing at the legislature, what my colleagues are doing, whether it's the SEC, manufacturing, Office of the Arts. People are believing in what Connecticut has, and I think that's what we're selling. It's belief. It's part of something bigger.
Well, this is, I'm talking a lot, or you are, but I just feel like there's a lot of exciting stories out there in Connecticut that are not being covered, and a lot of talent, and that's way before your time. So it's nothing. There's nothing personal about it. I just feel like we should be selling ourselves. One little tip, though, if you're doing international, don't say still revolutionary, because some countries might feel a little bit threatened by that word. But aside from that, good luck and thank you for your hard work.
Thanks, Representative Dillon. Okay, so listen, the clock is ticking here. The next item was CT Next. Long story short, you've got a $20 million bond authorization. And tell me how you're going to translate that into this biennium.
Sure thing, Senator. Dave, can I turn this to you, please?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Matt, and hello, Senator. Yes, the bond authorization for 20 million remains in place over and available to be utilized over the course of the biennium ahead. What we'll plan to do, with that funding is to kind of continue our work to support innovation and entrepreneurship in the state of Connecticut, focused on kind of 4 different pillars of action. One is supporting mentorship and technical assistance for entrepreneurs. Another is hoping to facilitate and provide access to risk capital to support the growth of startups. Also want to promote access to talent and a skilled workforce, and finally, growing a network of collaborators and resources to be supportive of innovators and entrepreneurs across the state of Connecticut.
Where's that plan? I don't mean to interrupt you. I'm just trying to, beat the clock here. Where's that plan?
Where's the plan in terms of what? In terms of an allocation for the
yeah, you're talking about the pill. You got 4 pillars. You're going to morph it into DECD. Where is that kind of?
We don't have an exact plan or spending plan laid out, Senator, for exactly how those funding will be utilized. That would be determined as we continue to move forward. But I can describe some of the projects we have underway for right now. For instance, support of the SBIR STTR initiative, support for the Tech Talent Bridge internship program that's currently underway, and at the moment we also have an open RFI that is out, solicitation, and it's out and seeking proposals for projects from all corners of the state, from entrepreneurs and innovators and the organizations that support them. And we'll be reviewing the responses that come in from that solicitation and utilizing that to formulate a strategy relative to the needs that are expressed from different communities across the state.
Okay, so we need a summary. We need a white paper on that. Tell us, what this is. It doesn't sound like it's crystallized, but you've got this allocation, and you've got these plans, and I don't know if no money, if I'm hearing you right, is out the door on this, but
none of that 20 million has been released by the bond commission yet. Yeah, that's correct. Sorry.
But the department hasn't put any money out the door on this.
The department has been closing out contracts that were previously signed by CT Next as a successor entity to CT Next, and so there were approximately 50, I believe 49 agreements that were still active as of the termination date of CT Next that the department continues to service. And so beyond that, we are providing ongoing support for SBIR STTR programming, as I alluded to a moment ago, as well as the Tech Talent Bridge program, and we have the RFI and some funding there. We're anticipate potentially up to about $500,000 worth of grants that could be made against that solicitation.
Okay, so can you possibly, David, just show us what is still being serviced, what then is encumbered out of this total allocation, and then, the remainder and how you, are planning to allocate it. Okay.
Very good.
Okay. Thank you. And anybody got hands up here? Okay. Thank you. David, you're on MRDA.
Yes, thank you, Senator. So, I mean, I think we could spend a lot of time going into a ton of detail. I'll give folks just the shortest version kind of where we stand. I think, as you're all aware, we were stood up in July of 2024 with our first board meeting. We spent, 4 or 5 months getting things up and running, policies and procedures, bylaws, opening bank accounts, hiring lawyers, all the basics to make sure that we're in compliance with the various state statutes and laws, and doing all of our necessary reporting and budgeting. And so now we're in the process of recruiting municipalities, which is a crucial step in our 4-step process. Municipalities have to raise their hand to elect to work with us. We do a zoning review. We enter into an MOU with the chief elected official, establishing development districts, and then we can entertain project funding. So I'm very pleased to share that there's been an incredible amount of municipal interest. We're in conversations with about 35 municipalities. The soonest that a town, or the earliest that a town or city could have signed up, was basically the first week in February, and we already have 7 who have elected to do so. I expect by the end of March, we'll have over a dozen. So there's an incredible amount of interest on behalf of municipalities, and they range in size and geographic location. Many of the members of the subcommittee have municipalities within their districts who are interested in working with us, ranging from, Norwich to Middletown to Norwalk to, New London, all over the board, Naugatuck and Waterbury. And so we expect that we'll be in a position to start entertaining project funding applications this summer. We expect that we'll bring our first collection of projects to Bond Commission this fall. And we think there's going to be a lot of demand for this funding source. Happy to answer any other questions or speak with any members of this subcommittee or the legislature offline. But that's the short story. I see Rep. Johnson. I don't know if I'm allowed to call on you, but I see your hand raised, so I'm happy to do so.
Yeah, thank you. I'd love to spend some time talking with you offline about this, particularly in terms of some other proposals that I have to coordinate, what you might be able to do to expand housing opportunities throughout the state. So if I could set up a time with you to do that, because I think this is actually the spot where it would be the most helpful to be able to sit down. So whenever you can, as soon as possible, I'd like to talk to you.
Yep, I'll be in touch.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, my apologies. I was muted there, folks. And I don't see anybody else's hand up. And if I do, just holler, because I don't mean to miss you. So David, just one baseline question, okay?
Yes.
When they ask me, and by the way, Naugatuck, Waterbury are kind of in that queue. Why do we need such an entity when we have economic development agencies throughout the state in municipalities? Is this duplicative, layer upon layer?
Yeah, fair question. I think municipalities have a varying range of capacity and expertise. And I think what is interesting about MRDA is it builds out a suite of tools, and then we can mobilize exactly what tool each municipality needs. In some, it's going to be zoning support. In others, it's fiscal impact analysis. In others, it's help on permitting. And in others yet, it's funding and it's marketing. And so we are really designed to be able to mobilize the kind of point of acupuncture and understand what that need is on a municipality by municipality basis. And I think probably the most important thing is that we are there to be a hand holder to our municipal partners to better position them to be successful applicants for other state programs and discretionary federal funding sources if those ever materialize again. And so I think it's really different than anything that exists in that we are kind of the strike force team that is being mobilized to meet municipal objectives and to help bring them to their, next stage in their own development.
Yeah, that's very helpful for myself and I think my colleagues, because, we typically just look at an economic development agency and, they go after what the traditional, but this is talking about connecting the dots. Give us an example of zoning support.
Yeah, absolutely. So a big piece of what we have to do is to certify whether or not the zoning will likely support a substantial increase in the number of housing units. And so what's I think interesting about that is substantial enables us to tailor our approach to different municipalities, because substantial in Naugatuck is different than substantial in Waterbury and different than substantial in Old Saybrook. But that likely word, I think, is very important. We'll look at the zoning, and based on our knowledge and expertise and relationship with developers, we know those, again, sort of points of acupuncture, whether it's parking ratios or height limits or setback requirements, to help them understand the ways in which their zoning are currently preventing their own development vision from being realized by the private sector. What's interesting, though, as I think you're all aware, is we can only make recommendations. We don't usurp any local control. We don't override any local zoning authority, but we can be is a resource for the local planning and zoning commission to help them both understand the implications of different zoning regulations, but also to help kind of sell it to local stakeholders through visualizations and through fiscal impact analysis, so that they can translate zoning into the kinds of things that the community is looking to achieve.
Okay, that's very instructive. Rep. Johnson, is that a question you had previously, or do you have another question?
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. That is exactly the kind of thing that I wanted to discuss with David Kors about and much more detail than we have time for now. So I don't want to hold anybody up, but I do want to spend a little time going through the things that I have in my district that and in Eastern Connecticut in general as well, because I think that there are a lot of things, missed opportunities in Eastern Connecticut that we would be able to work on with the COGS. So I think that is that. So that's where I'm going with this, and I do appreciate you very much. Thank you, Senator Hartley.
Yes, and so, hey, David, your line item here, is this basically FTEs? What's the breakdown?
Yep. So with the funding we have right now, which was 600,000 in the current fiscal year, that is basically enough to cover my salary and benefits, legal, communications, insurance, rent, basic operations expenses, IT. This $500,000 increase will enable me to add, I expect, 2 FTE and then a third in FY27. So this is to get our team to about 4 people, which is, the minimum necessary to achieve, I think, what we've been tasked to achieve by statute.
Okay, so that would be the 4 FTE would be by 27.
Correct, and that's including me.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, and the initial line item was 600, right?
Correct.
And now we got 5 and 26 and 7 and 27. Okay. All right. Is there any bond money associated with this?
Yeah, so we have an increased or an additional authorization in FY27. So we have a $60 million authorization now, of which 59 is outstanding. We brought 1 before the bond commission for some operational support during startup. And so we have 59 remaining, and the governor's proposal is to add an additional 30 in FY27. And I think based on the level of need and the amount of communities that are raising their hand, that we will utilize that and seek bond commission approval to mobilize those funds into projects over the coming 2 fiscal years.
Okay, thanks, David, for that speed description. Further questions? I don't see any, folks, which means we could move on to the next bullet.
I think Delaney has a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
I'll just go really quick. Regarding the CRDA piece of that there's not intersection. I have heard from several towns that are not Hartford that when they have asked for money in CRDA, they do not receive money in CRDA, and they have desire to be part of MRDA.
Yeah, we welcome them.
Okay, that's all I want to know.
Yeah.
Thanks. Little refugees, we got to find a home for them somewhere. Thanks.
Having said that, though, CRDA is basically the Hartford metropolitan area. But would you describe it, David, as the same thing?
So very similar, very similar. I think we have a little bit more of a planning and economic development mandate by the way our statute is differentiated from theirs. And CRDA, and I know Joe and others might be on, CRDA covers Hartford and the contiguous 7 municipalities, but the majority of their work is in Hartford and East Hartford. And so we have been approached by and have had discussions with, West Hartford, Bloomfield, Newington, Wethersfield, Windsor, and South Windsor, who I know some on the committee represent, who have said we're kind of stuck in the middle. And I don't know if they get moved from CRDA to MRDA or if they just get enabled to work with either. But we certainly welcome that modest legislative amendment.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Seeing no other hands raised. Thanks, David.
Absolutely. Thank you all.
Yeah. Hey, Matt, that brings us to art, culture, grants.
And Liz Shapiro, the Director of Arts and Culture and Museums, is on. Liz?
Hi, so nice to be here. We have a couple of things that we pulled together for you. What I can tell you, though, speaking specifically to attendance and admission, so in fiscal year 2023, we did some real comprehensive studies about visitation numbers. And what we found that was in 2019, we had 9.7 million visitors to about 730 cultural institutions, which include museums and arts venues, what you would think of as cultural institutions. In 2021, the number dropped to 6.7 million, unsurprising. And then the last time we did a count was for fiscal year 23, and the visitation had returned to $9.7 million. Excuse me, 9.7 million visitors. We don't really track admission costs. We did track admission costs for one specific program, which was the Summer at the Museums program, which ran for several years with ARPA funds. But in general, we don't track admission. And the reason we do that is because it's really not apples to apples, because what we hope is that some of these admission costs are underwritten by state support. They're underwritten by other, by other grants, federal and private grants. So looking at average admission costs, unless it's extremely specific, it isn't really a data point that ends up being particularly useful for us. So that's the information that I can give you specific. We put a bit of tourism, information in here. What I can also tell you is that based on fiscal year 22, which was the last time we did an arts and economic prosperity study for Connecticut, that the average attendee to an arts or cultural venue is spending $30.47. So that is not including the ticket price, but that includes things like food and drink, retail shopping, lodging, transportation, childcare and miscellaneous. So that may give you a sense of where our economic impact stands. And I'm happy to take questions.
Yeah, so that was a lot, and I appreciate you walking us through. Representative Datham has a question for you.
Thank you. Just in public testimony, I did hear a number of our recipients talk about attendance and things like that. And so I was a bit surprised when I read this here, because it seemed like, that information's out there. And I know like the Arts Alliance does track some of this information as well. And I do think it is helpful for us to have that, because if we can say, okay, well, we know that each visit is a, $30 uptick for the area, it gives a better understanding of that sort of economic impact and the return on investment. And I think, going forward, I think it would be helpful to be able to include that information in reporting that you do in your annual report. Just my 2 cents. but understand you don't have the data right now.
Thank you.
Yeah, important point, Representative Datham, and I'm assuming that it's duly noted here with the department. So, and a lot of the conversation has been, about art tourism. And so, Liz, we're at this juncture here in this budget where we have before us essentially an entire tranche of community arts and tourism venues that are flatlined here. And so you're familiar with that list, I'm assuming?
I am.
Yeah, talk to us. It's kind of like, where do we go here? What's the rationale? I understand it's all about the numbers, but we work so hard on tourism and the quality of life in this state, and now we've got these black holes here that this is a challenge. Do we shut the door? Do we shut the lights? That's what we're saying.
Yeah, I am well aware of that. The budget, of course, came from the governor's office and OPM. Our funding in the governor's budget has remained for our discretionary funding for our arts grants has remained at $1.497298 million, which is matched by federal funds because we are a partner with the NEA and they do provide about $1 million worth of funds. At least we're crossing our fingers that they do. The money that we get, which has remained the same for about the last 14 years to fund these discretionary grants, both competitive and non-competitive, is stewarded extremely carefully. We do not intend from our office to change any of the support that we give to organizations. That is discretionary under our ability right now. But I do understand the frustration that you are talking about.
Yeah. So Liz, I don't mean to cut you off. We got like 4 minutes here.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, no, but anyhow, there was this conversation about trying to take a look at what box office was, what each one was doing, are they really, financially viable? Do you think such an analysis could help us in determining, where we put our resources here?
I'm not sure of the answer to that. And that's my honest answer, Senator Hartley. I think it would be an extremely expensive study to run. I don't think we have in-house capability of doing that because that would essentially be looking at economic viability of every 730 arts organizations in the state, arts and cultural organizations.
Yeah, what if we're just asking what their box office was?
We can ask what their box office is, but it's not going to be the same because so many get revenue from other sources that help to underwrite tickets for people who couldn't necessarily afford tickets or who keep ticket costs low. Like if you compare ticket costs at the Bushnell to ticket costs at Hartford Stage to ticket costs at Seven Angels, right? Very, very different kinds of things that we're looking at. So we'd have to look at a few more things, and I'd be happy to discuss it. It's something that I wish I had a magic wand that I could wave and answer that question. We do know, though, from surveys across the boards that, every visitor, no matter what they spend on tickets, the average other expenditures is $30.50, basically. So that I think is an important number to consider.
Right. Say that again to me. What?
So for every ticket, they amalgamated in fiscal year 22 for all attendees to arts, culture, museums, for the total spend for every person who attended an arts or cultural event, they had $30.50 of other spending in the community is where they attended events.
Okay, got it. Thank you. All right, really quick, Senator Marks, let's see how fast you can talk. Where are you, Ms. Marks? There you are. Are you muted?
I think Martha, can you speak?
I think she froze. Yeah. Okay, we'll go to Lucy, and we'll go right back to Martha. And then
this is just if we can cover it another session because we didn't get a chance to talk to OWS.
Got it.
I had some questions about what they shared, and we didn't get time today. Just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, and then Senator Austin.
So I had a question on the food desert tax abatement that was in here for $500,000. Did we ever do anything with that? Where was that?
Senator, this is Kyle Abercrombie, Chief Administrative Officer of DCD. That funding lapsed. Essentially, the program as written, we were unable to implement, and we provided a full reporting on that in our food and security strategic plan from December 12th, 2023. So I'd be happy to provide that to you. Essentially, the way the program was written, a grocery store would have to be conceptualized, financed, permitted, and constructed all within a year in order to get a tax abatement from the municipality, then being reimbursed by the state of Connecticut, which is, in our opinion, impossible. And then additionally, we haven't heard from any municipalities about this program. So I just wanted to share that with you, and I'm happy to provide this report that I have in front of me.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Martha's back again.
Go ahead, Martha.
I'm sorry. My internet is very bad in my office. Just quickly to the chairs. We're all getting lots of requests from our museums and theaters about their line items. Do you want us to email you about what our requests are?
No, I want you guys to have a meeting on this subcommittee to talk about that when we don't have any agency people on.
Yeah.
I was asking Senator Hartley and Rep. Kavros DeGraw if you want us to send you an email.
Well, you could have it at hand. To Senator Austin's point, we've got to, circle the wagons here and have, a conversation amongst ourselves. Okay. Yeah, you could send it to us.
Still learning the process.
Yeah, here's a minute. Thank you. Senator Austin, did you?
I have too many questions of DECD. They do too many things that I consider too important.
Yeah, no kidding. Hey, Rep. Sims, you there?
I am here, and thank you, Madam Chair. Quickly, I just wanted to, because I haven't heard a lot of conversations around like equity and accessibility, and I'd like to know how does DECD budget support equitable access to arts and cultural programs, particularly for low-income communities and communities of color?
Liz Shapiro, I'm happy to take that. So the core of our strategic plan is our READY initiative since 2017, and READY stands for Relevance, Equity, Access, Diversity, and Inclusion. So we take these things extremely seriously, so much so that for 2 years we collected data. We're still collecting it. I'm not sure if we will be able to collect it in the future, but we are still collecting data on what composition, audiences served, how much actual funds that organizations spend on DEI, either training or accessibility accommodations. And we also have a council that we call our READY Council that is 6-seated council members who advise us on relevance, equity, access, diversity, and inclusion issues. So we're not getting in our own way. So we have always expert opinions who can advise us. And those council members have been a huge help.
Okay, great. And thank you for that response. And my last question is, and what percentage of the tourism promotion funding is dedicated to highlighting diverse cultural heritage sites and events across the state?
Rep. Sims, this is Anthony. I don't have an exact number for you. What I can tell you, though, is that we most definitely make it a priority. So Connecticut is the only state in the nation that is a member of the Gay, Lesbian, Transgender Travel Alliance. So we were the first state to ever join it. I don't know if other states have joined it. So that is most definitely a significant part of what we do. We also, from a advertising targeting perspective, we do a lot of the advertising within the state to focus on creating cultural trails. So whether it's doing work around Black History Month, Women's International History Month. So knowing that these are the things that are culturally relevant at the time. So we do have programming around those. I unfortunately don't have a direct percentage, but if that is something that you'd like us to look into, I can most certainly have a staffer sit down and go through and give you a mathematical number.
Thank you so much. And that would be extremely helpful on both of those questions or both of those fronts. If you guys can provide me with some data on that, that'll be great. Thanks again, Madam Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Rep. Sims. I see no other hands. And yeah, I guess we got to what, page 3. So I just wanted to quickly talk about, we've got a new line item in there, Matt, for advanced CT. Now, advanced CT is the new CERC, and the CERC model, and even the advanced CT model was in large measure supported and sustained through the business sector. So I guess I'd like to know, has something fallen off? What's the need now for us to have a new line item on this, especially this year when we find ourselves cutting all the arts and culture, dealing with the marketing and stuff, and now we got a new line item. Tell me about it.
Sure, I'll start off, Senator, and then I'll pass it to Kyle. In the past, DECD had provided funding through CERC, and when CERC was eliminated, the statute was eliminated, and there was pieces in that statute that were not caught the way that they were eliminated. Initially, DECD was providing funding through MAA to advance CT. That then changed to the line item appropriation, and in this past fiscal year, we saw that we were missing that statutory back support to allow us to provide advanced CT the funding that way. So we want to make sure that this is buttoned up. Kyle, anything that I'm missing there?
Yeah, no, I would just add, Senator, that this is not a new line item. This was in last year's biennial budget, and it's maintained in the governor's recommended budget for the next 2 fiscal years. So it's not being added in this budget. It's the same line item that was there last budget.
Okay, but even on that score, it's a new line item in the last biennium. So yeah, we did provide CERC dollars. What are we providing from MAA?
So we're not. Kyle, please.
Yeah, sorry, Deputy Commissioner. We don't have those numbers in front of us, but happy to provide that.
Yeah, let's take a look at that, okay? And once again, advanced CT is by and large, I remember when they kind of did their pitch campaign, funded by Connecticut businesses. So yeah, I just need to understand a little bit more about what, our piece of this is, if you will.
Yeah, happy to provide that information. And I just want to emphasize that, under Commissioners Dahm and Commissioner O'Keefe, the operational relationship between DECD and Advanced CT has evolved, and Advanced CT really is the frontline entity that is working with existing businesses and recruiting new businesses. They're the salespeople. They're the ones that are doing the work to keep those businesses here and to attract new businesses here. The DECD staff now, in terms of supporting businesses, really focused more on doing the contracts for any tax credits or any other incentive program that a business qualifies for, and dealing with the administrative side rather than being the face-to-face sales team.
No, I get it. It's the year of priorities. Yeah.
Understood. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Matt. Okay, no other hands up. We're 9 minutes off the mark, and we are supposed to be, so you guys can all go take a deep breath. But Kelly, we're going to talk again to you, okay? And then we also have to circle the wagons on this art and culture stuff, okay? Thank you, DECD team. We really appreciate it. And I think, Madam Administrator, we are now going to talk about housing, are we not?
We are, and they are in the room now.
All right. Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Appropriations team.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have with us our housing team. We have Commissioner with us, do we?
Yes.
Oh,
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you.
Senator.
Yeah, so listen, we've got what, a half an hour here, 9 minutes into it. So can you walk us through your submissions? And once again, the Approps subcommittee will just kind of chime in and raise their hands as we're going through this, okay?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. I have with me my team. I don't see them, but Michael Santora and Steve Talila, and also Deputy Commissioner Julian Pierce with me, and Melvin Castillo, our CFO. Really quick, we did submitted the questions and backup information. I'll just go really quick on the questions about providing income eligibility details for housing vouchers. I don't know if the committee has any questions from the information we sent to them.
Well, the truth be known, I'm just trying to get it up in front of me right now. Do you have the response sheets that you could share, and that might help people to
Michael, can you share it from your end?
I can certainly do so. 3 seconds here. And screen 2. And I'll blow it up. Can everybody see that?
Yep.
Give me a thumbs up. Fantastic.
Everybody
okay.
Else. Michael, can you make it a little bigger, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Commissioner.
How's that?
Yes. How about the members? Can you see it?
Got it.
Okay. So basically, is the eligibility for the housing vouchers is determined based on the household annual gross income. The residents that receive vouchers is their income is, they should not exceed 50% of the area median income. So that's kind of the basics of the program.
Okay, and that's been the long-standing.
Yeah, that's HUD. It does, yeah.
Right, you have no say on that.
Nope.
Okay.
If there is no question, we can go to the other.
Yeah, the waiting list. Yeah, quickly give us a thumbnail here.
Okay, on the wait list, right now we have 1,129 people, different categories of vouchers. And then on the wrap, we have 2,780. So in total, we have 3,929 people on the wait list.
How does that compare if you looked back over the last 2 or 3 years?
Well, we have gone through, we have provided, gone down on the wait list. And Steve, maybe you can help me to remember how it was before when I just came in.
Sure. So the numbers have dramatically decreased over the course of time, especially on the Section 8 side. Last time when we opened up the wait list about 10 years ago, we received 75,000 applications for 5,000 slots on the Section 8 wait list, as well as 3,000 slots on the WRAP wait list. So over that time, we've been able to move through the Section 8 list at approximately 4,000 people over that time period. The last few years has been beneficial to us. We were able to move a lot of folks on because of increases in our funding amount from HUD on the Section 8 side, which allowed us to really work through the wait list as well as do some of our special programs like the Head Start on Housing, which we were able to utilize Section 8 resources there. RAP is a little bit different, as you know, that is all funded from you folks at the legislature. And what we've seen over the past few years or so is any increases has been directed specifically to targeted populations, whether it be the homeless population, the money follows the person population, or various others. So we have to abide by that in terms of identifying people who come into the program, as opposed to coming directly off the wait list. So that's why the RAP list moves a little bit slower, because the turnover there is not going to be has to come from that bucket as opposed to the specific set asides, like I said, for homeless or money follows a person or family reunification, etc.
Rep DiCaprio has his hand up. Rep DiCaprio.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just, as far as the RAP list, how does that work for, I understand it's closed this year. Will it open up next year, or how does that work?
So we have not opened up the wait list. We planned for this coming year because we had so many people on the wait list just to try to be able to respond to those individuals. But we will plan to open it up in this coming year.
Okay, so are you talking this year or next, or the 2026?
26.
Okay. All right, Commissioner. Thank you. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Go ahead.
Now, any other question?
I don't see any other hands on this, Madam Commissioner.
So we can move on to the mobility program. So the housing mobility program has been going on to try to help families basically to move from urban settings to suburban settings. And we have been, we engaged Mercy Housing to provide that with helping families to make a plan, whether it's transportation or any other needs that they have, so that they can use the vouchers to move to other communities. The mobility program, we have been using the state funds in the amount of $432,392. And for this mobility program, we have been working in the greater Hartford area.
How's that determined, Commissioner?
How was the Hartford area determined is with a pilot, and I'm gonna have Steve to just give me a little bit of the historical information. Steve?
Sure. So we put the program out to bid a couple of times in the past 10 years. And based on some conversations with various different experts in the field, it really was recommended that we focus on the greater Hartford region to be able to assist moving folks into the higher opportunity areas. Since that time frame, if we actually scroll down a little bit, Mike, on this, DOH has been able to partner and apply for additional mobility counseling funds from HUD, and we were successful in our opportunity in which we received a 5-year grant that will be able to expand mobility counseling services to New Haven, Bridgeport, and the Meriden, Middletown area. As you can see, we are trying our best to move this as far across the state as possible within available resources. So going back to why Hartford was chosen in the beginning was because we only had that $400,000. It wasn't a ton of money to be able to do the entire state. So we really tried to focus in on one area to be able to provide the greatest results, as opposed to spreading it out very small through multiple different communities.
I got it. So how did you determine the expansion areas?
So based on the expansion areas, it really got quite technical and in the weeds, because the way that HUD asked for the application, we had to come up with a certain number of households that would be eligible. So we were able to partner with the New Haven Housing Authority, known as Elm City Communities, to actually bring up the number of households eligible for the program. So it really was based on sort of the HUD metrics on where we'd be able to be successful. So for example, it would be tough to do a mobility counseling out of, like, say, the Torrington region, just because there aren't very many vouchers out there. So it would be tough to gain the necessary number of households that HUD would like to see to be able to fund it. So that's why we picked it. And it was really based on what is called opportunity mapping, and some qualifications that HUD determines. So that's where we really looked at that from.
Hate to say it, but so we got Hartford, New Haven, Bridgeport. The only other of the big five that's not in there is in Waterbury.
That is true. And I think, once again, based on the metrics that HUD came with, it really made sense to partner with the Elm City Communities. They were a housing authority that was willing to partner with us on that issue. So that actually really, we're probably one of the only applications in the country that actually partner between two housing authorities. So that is also why I think we were pretty successful in gaining that application. Like I said, we do believe in mobility counseling. It is something that we clearly are interested in. And if we have other opportunities to apply for funding, I'm sure we will take that opportunity to do so.
Thank you. Doesn't make me feel any better. We've got some hands raised here. Representative Johnson, go for it.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. And being in Eastern Connecticut, I really do feel left out.
Yeah, well,
just saying.
Join the crowd.
Yeah. And I saw a couple of questions. One is in my area, some of the larger landlords have shifted from Section 8 to agricultural. And I didn't know if you had any information about how that might have expanded more access in other areas, including my own area. And then to follow up on that angle of agricultural versus Section 8 housing subsidies, I'm wondering, in terms of maximizing the actual reimbursement rates so that the voucher system would be more usable, because many people cannot use the vouchers, even in Eastern Connecticut, because the value of the voucher is too low. And let me just say, I have in my district university students, and so there's a large competition with a low-income population and the university students that may spend $1,000 a month for a bedroom, as opposed to somebody who wants a 1 or 2 bedroom place for about that amount. So do you have any offerings of help? And also, could you please define what you mean by opportunity zone? Is that within the federal guidelines, or is that another type of opportunity zone?
Sure. So I think I heard 3 questions in there. So first off, the opportunity zones are based on metrics that determine where folks have access to higher opportunity in terms of education, lower crime, and also access to higher paying jobs. So there is a map that is put into place that is what we utilize. We have done some work with Open Communities Alliance, OCA, that has helped us put in some of those opportunity maps across the state. So that's kind of helped what determines those factors.
Oh, can I just interrupt for a quick second?
Sure.
That would be about, I have Eastern Connecticut State University, I have the community college, and I have the tech school. So that's not included in opportunity, educational opportunities.
This is just more about the overall metric. So like you put all of these factors into the metric, and that is really what helps determine what those opportunity areas are around the state. And like they say, they generally tend to focus on the higher opportunity suburban communities around the larger urban centers.
Okay, Gracito, then thank you for that. And I'll try and drill down some more. If you send me a copy of that map or send it to the
Sure.
group, it'd be great. And then just agriculture versus Section 8.
Sure. Agriculture versus Section 8. I know the United States Department of Agriculture does have some housing opportunities available. Mike, you may want to speak to that a little bit. You might have a little bit more expertise than I do on USDA. But in terms of the Section 8, obviously we are limited to what HUD requires in terms of the fair market rent. So HUD at the federal level is the one that sets the rates that we can reimburse landlords at. So we're kind of at their jurisdiction. Unfortunately, we can't change it. Clearly, we try to have as much input as we can, and let them know that oftentimes the fair market rents are too low, but it's still up to the federal government to determine if they want to raise those rents or not. So unfortunately, we are, at the will of the federal government on that one.
No, agriculture is also federal. I'd love to set aside some time and meet with you and go into a little more detail about the opportunities. We have CLIC, we have numerous opportunities out here, but maybe the executive branch isn't fully versed on some of these things. And I'd love to be able to sit down with you and some people from our region.
Sure.
Thank you,
Madam Chair.
Rep Sims, to be followed by Rep Dillon. You're on, Travis. Hello?
Looks like you might be frozen from my angle.
Yeah, okay. So, okay. How about you, Rep Dillon, and then we'll go back to Travis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wonder if you could follow up afterwards with more detail on the metrics that were used, because I don't know how long those programs will survive at the federal level. They're making changes, and we may want to look at our own models. And on the high, low opportunity, I'm not quite sure how to react to that. On the one hand, I'm not surprised New Haven Housing Authority was involved because they were very inventive on policy. Really, it's policy pioneers in a number of ways, and not just with this program. But I'm not quite sure whether I live in a high opportunity or low opportunity area, and I'm not sure I live in New Haven, but I'm just interested in how those metrics were derived, and we don't need to chat about it, but we could look.
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, maybe it's the delta between us and the surrounding towns, and I'm next to Woodbridge, so that would make sense. Whatever. Thank you.
Thanks, Rep Dillon. Is Rep Sims with us yet?
He just logged back in.
Okay. Can you hear us, Travis? Hello?
He will in a second. He's connecting to audio now. Rep Sims, we were calling you if you're ready.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I don't know what I hit, but everything just kind of went out. So again, thanks, Commissioner, for coming before us. I had a question more in line of, again, with the equity aspect. And my question was, what steps are being taken to ensure communities with historically low voucher acceptance rates are participating in mobility initiative?
Sure. So I think, go ahead.
Go ahead, Steve. Go ahead.
Yeah, that certainly is actually the goal of the mobility counseling, is to be able to spread vouchers throughout the state, including those areas traditionally underserved. So basically what the mobility counseling is trying to do is to identify landlords who would be interested and make the match between tenants who are interested to moving there. So they provide information about the community, whether information about schools, job opportunities, or, doctors, all sorts of different factors that they kind of take into account. So that's sort of what the goal is really to provide that level of information to those households that have our vouchers. I think the most important part of this that needs to be said is all of our vouchers are choice vouchers, which means the tenant can choose where they want to live. So what mobility counseling really is doing is providing the information to those voucher holders and those tenants to be able to decide what is best for them and their family. So that's ultimately what is being provided there.
And just also important to know that this $4.5 million grant is is a pilot from HUD. So there are several states participating with several partners to see how it works, and then to evaluate how the program help families to move to other areas where they, instead of just being in the cities. So it's really a pilot. So we'll see how it goes.
Okay, yeah, because I was kind of leading up into my my next question, which was how the Department of Housing address the racial and economic disparities in housing mobility and ensuring that families of colors have equal access to high opportunity neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Yeah, Representative, that's exactly what this program is meant to do, is once again, provide that level of information. And like the commissioner said earlier, if it's out, provide that transportation, ensure that those households have access to transportation to make those opportunity moves successful. So that certainly is the goal, is to provide anybody who has one of our vouchers the opportunity to choose where they want to live, by both providing the information as well as engaging with landlords in those communities to be able to rent to folks with vouchers.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Thanks again, Madam Chair.
Yeah, and Senator Austin, Madam Chair, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Down farther on this, do we have something on shelters and no free shelters?
What was the question?
Shelters and no free shelters. So you have grant opportunities for shelters. Are those every 3 years, once a year? How is that determined?
Every 3 years.
And what year are we in now?
This is the second year in, Steve?
It's technically the first, because when we rebid it, we started contracts on January 1st, 2024, and they expire on June 30th, 2027. So we're still in that kind of first year, 1.5. So it was a 3.5 based on there was a 3.5 year contract based on the timing of it last time. So we still have 2 years before the next round will go out.
And the number of communities that have shelters, how many communities have 12 months out of the year shelters, and how many have the bifurcated, might be for 4 months, might be for 6 months, cold weather shelters, not just shelters for emergency weather, but cold weather shelters? How many?
So I can look that up real quick if you just give me a second. So we would have we have permanent year-round shelters in Willimantic, New London. Then going east, we have them in Manchester, East Hartford. Then going down, Middletown and Meriden, New Haven, then Milford, Bridgeport.
Can you send them to us?
Norwalk, and then Westport.
Can you send them?
Stanford, Danbury, Torrington.
So Steve, we do have a list.
Yeah.
So could you
We do have a
send
list. So I'm just doing it off the top of my head. About 17 communities.
And then
for the warming centers is the other question. How many warming centers we have?
Warming centers are mostly still located in those same communities. We will have a random one outside of that community. For example, we have like a warming center in West Haven this year. But for the most part, the warming centers tend to also stay in the communities which have the regular year-round shelters.
So if you could
Senator, we can give you the list for those two.
And those that have a grant, please.
Yes. So you want the amount of the grant for those?
Yes, I do.
For the warming centers and for the shelters, or just for the warming centers?
For both.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, so I don't see any other hands here. And we are on to the
Just a quick question,
yeah,
if I may, on the shelter issue. I
Yeah.
just wondered, as you mentioned, Willimantic / Wyndham has year-round shelters, and wondering, is that something the Department of Corrections uses to drop people off when they discharge them from the prison system?
Well, that is something that clearly we try to encourage against. That's why we created a coordinated entry system that really allows to have more fair and equitable distribution of the resources. So folks that are being placed into shelter should be coming either directly through the coordinated entry network or through our homeless outreach teams. Hopefully we've tried to build partnerships with the Department of Corrections to not allow people just to be dropped off. Generally, they will try to give us information if they know of folks that have nowhere to go, that if they're going to be exiting. Clearly, the end of sentence population is always the more difficult because if somebody's going out on probation, parole, we can generally work with those systems to find a transitional bed within DOC or CSSD that can kind of help. So it's something that clearly we know about, and we are trying to limit as best as we can.
Thank you for that answer. And if you have any of your policy documents, I'd love to be able to take a look at them. And as soon as you can get them to me, because I'm researching this issue. And I appreciate all your help and look forward to spending some more time with you. Thank you so much, Madam Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Rep. Johnson, and thanks for that question, because that's a really important question. And I hear you, Steve, saying, yeah, that you're trying to work with them, but that's not very definitive. I'd like to know how specifically we're doing this, because I've got the largest shelter in the state of Connecticut, and I know the days, and I see, I see the traffic. And it's an injustice to those individuals, first and foremost, and to the community, because the model of the shelter. You go outside all day long, and then you come back in at night. So I think we collectively are asking you for a very definitive policy, not one that is, undefined. So if you can get back to us with a strategic to-do, so that we really can, have a policy here.
A policy as it relates to DOC discharging people to homelessness?
Yes.
But that
Okay.
that should be
I think that would fall more. That falls more on
DOC.
DOC to create the policy.
But because they're getting dropped off in your facilities, then look, you need me to initiate this. We got to get in the room. And so, it's DOC and it's DOH. That's who it is. You've got the shelters. That's where they're getting dropped off.
It's also DEMA.
So we have had I have had a couple of conversations with the commissioner, and I have been told that that's not all accurate. I will come back, because we try to do the best that we can, and we're trying to get people out of shelter into permanent housing, and then we got more individuals in, right? So we wanted to make sure that we don't get more people into the system. But I will certainly have a conversation with the commissioner, and then perhaps it's that conversation among us and clarify how the system works in both sides. So I can certainly reach out to the commissioners to talk a little more about this.
Well, that's great. Thank you, Madam Commissioner. And so I'm just going to take some liberty, and I'm going to deputize Representative Johnson and myself, and we're going to invite you for coffee. How about that?
That'll be great. Thank you.
Okay, I got it on my calendar. Okay, TBC. Okay, so we are now 5:06, and we didn't really get a chance to talk about time to own. And I just want to make a comment about that. And rather than waste any more time, if folks, you have questions, I'm just going to ask you to raise your hands. But, I see here on the targeted census tract that, we talk about the fact that applicants who are purchasing in a target area are eligible for an interest rate discount of 0.250. And I got to tell you, I don't know that people are finding out about this, because I have at least 2 constituent cases here where no one has heard about this.
So that CHFA has been doing a lot of marketing. They have done, and they also have are participating in many community events. So I know that they were in Waterbury in one of the events with Nest, the organization that is working with them, because they provide the housing counseling, but they work with all the housing counseling agencies across the state. And they also are promoting the program. So if we can perhaps send you also some information, and we'll, in the program, because it continues, we continue marketing. I myself have made my available to go and to talk to several community organizations at different part of the state. And we have done radio and we have done TV, especially in Spanish language too. So we're trying to reach out to some of the minority communities too.
Okay, I hear that.
But we
what
will try to, we can send you where we have been doing marketing, a list of those areas. And then if you have some suggestions that we can incorporate, that would be great.
Yeah, here's my thing. So if a family, an individual, and I've got one particular case where we got a domestic violence situation and a real bad housing situation, but they're working with CFHA, but they're not being told about this right there, never mind marketing or radio. It's got to come from them when they're in the application, and there's no information about this. So I guess we should have a conversation with Chafa about, how, we are trying to frontline these programs.
I will talk to the director, and I will make sure that they can promote it, and also to let us know and to let the legislators know about the programs, because you also can facilitate that.
Yeah, and the other part of that really quick is about the credit scores. It talks about the fact that there's an FHA minimum, and then it talks about a manual underwrite. Nobody is ever informed of this.
As I said, the housing counselors are the ones, because any first-time home buyer have to take the class. And when they take the class, they are informed. And then the financial institutions that are participating in the program. And that is the banks, small community banks, and also the other banks and financial institutions that participate in the program. But I will certainly bring the information that I'm getting from you to the staff to see how the marketing can be improved.
So I will tell you that I know in the last month, someone being rejected from CFHA on the basis of the credit score. That was by the way, the number was very close to what these numbers are you're showing me here, but below it. Okay, so not to waste any time, I thank you as always. And yeah, we've got other things to talk about, but thank you. And seeing no other comments from my colleagues, we're going to bid you farewell and welcome DOL. Thank you, Madam Administrator. Do we have DOL in the room?
Thank you.
They just joined.
Oh, great. Okay. So who do we have with us for DOL?
Hi, Senator Hartley, Dante Bartolomeo, Commissioner. I'm here with Daryl Vivinsky, Commissioner, and a bunch of our other team.
Oh,
I know you're rushed. I've been listening, so I won't go through the introductions.
We don't need to do any of that. We stole 10 minutes of your time. Let's just talk. Okay, can you basically walk us through your responses, would you, Dante?
Yes, Billy Taylor is going to share screen for us. The first question that we had to answer that we'll show you is around our current staffing levels. We have broken them out by funding source, by FTE, percentage of FTE for you. And Billy, it's not showing yet. There we go. Well, that's actually not the right one, Billy. Sorry. Do you have the other one I sent just a bit ago? I apologize, folks. I will try to do it. Billy
I can
doesn't have it.
share as well. I have it up.
Oh, that would be lovely. Thank you so much, Chloe.
Thank you.
Of course, sharing now. 1 second.
So while they're getting that, the highlights of what we shared in this chart, funding sources, we have listed 7 of them. We have a description. I have the full-time equivalents. There you go. I've highlighted for you the 438.89 FTE, which is federal funding direct to the agency. I've given you a description. WIA, for instance, is federal funds that go to the state and appropriated out through the budget. You'll see that there's the 261 state budgeted. The sources come from lines 1, 2, and 6. And the number that we have filled right now is 713 out of all, and 730 are funded.
Thank you. That's a really helpful way of breaking this down, getting our arms around this. Do we have questions from members? Okay, Jen.
Just quickly, in terms of the federal employees, there was some information coming out about the federal employees who were being discharged from employment. I just wondered, is that part of this plan, or is that in a separate spot?
No, Rep. Johnson, the federal employees that are being discharged are those that are working directly for the federal government. So USDOL as opposed to CTDOL. What we've been doing is trying to promote and make available all of the resources we can provide those who live in the state of Connecticut. So we've sent out information. We have it up on our website. That's what you've seen from us, is try to help support the federal workers who live in Connecticut who are losing their job to the current administration.
And so would that increase federal funding from them, from the feds for these federal employees, or is that as an issue that we have to look forward to?
Well, actually, the two do not relate. So these are folks who work in Washington.
Okay.
That you've been reading about, that we shared information. Yep. These are all the folks that work for my agency here directly, and the funding sources. I think what we can be concerned potentially about is, grants that come from the federal government to our state, which fund these folks in this chart. At this moment in time, we have not had any disruption in our funding. We had a quick disruption for a little bit. We paused for a little bit, but we're back on track. And we would let you know certainly if we started to have that.
Fabulous. Thank you for the clarification.
Rep. Sims, you have your hand up, sir. Or is that previously? Or are you frozen? Are you with us?
I assume you were asking the question for me. Yeah, my hand was up. I just have a brief question. What specific job training programs are being prioritized, and how do they align with the Connecticut's current labor market demands?
Well, that's quite a question, sir. And I'm actually going to offer that we sit down. We have a ton of programs for job seekers and workforce development programs. Many of them, I'd actually say the best thing for someone to do is to step foot in an American Job Center, because we partner with the workforce development boards there. Funding that comes to us, whether it be directly from the federal government or whether it be through state line item grants, is distributed out to the state boards, and they have providers who help with, whether it be helping folks access training, whether it's career development, career exploration, resume writing, using our our CT hires, labor exchange and job matching. So I am more than happy to kind of do that with you. It's exhaustive list. Very proud of it.
No, I appreciate it, and I look forward to it. Well, thank you for answering that. And do you guys have like any outreach coming out of your department per se to the various communities around the state, outside of just using other agencies?
I'm not sure what type of outreach you might be speaking to. We do social media. We send out information to all the legislators. We work with the workforce development boards. So yeah, we actually do quite a bit of outreach about our services and programs. We are not direct providers. We don't actually do the training. We have dollars that we administer and contract out to other entities who do the training.
Well, I understand. I was just hypothetically just asking the question if you guys offer any of those services out of your department. But thanks you again for clarifying, and thanks again for allowing me to ask the question, Chairwoman.
Yep. Chairman Austin.
Chairwoman Austin.
Yes. She's next. Thanks, Travis.
Thank you. So Commissioner, I'm curious. I've been hearing a lot of rumors about a consolidation of the WIOA boards. Have you heard anything along those lines? And is there a movement to eliminate some of the WIOA boards?
Well, so I'll repeat what that question came to me during the full session, and I went out on a limb and said that I will tell you that I have heard rumors. I have asked questions. The rumors have not been substantiated to me, and that I do stand behind the current arrangement, and I support, and my agency's opinion is that we support the current structure with the 5 workforce development boards.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, thank you. So, Commissioner, with regard to WIOA, you're showing, full-time equivalencies here, 40. And my question is any of this staffing funded by the governor's reserve?
We do have some staffing funded by the governor's reserve, yes. We have folks that are in our American Job Centers. We have all throughout, so we do have some. I can provide that at another time. I didn't prepare that for this, but yes, we do.
Yeah,
I guess I should mention that the governor's reserve is not just kind of a nondescript fund source. The governor's reserve comes with very prescriptive guidance. There are required activities that the agency must do prior, from that governor's reserve before they can do any other kind of allowable activities. And we have lists of what are required and what are allowable. So we don't have a whole lot of flexibility at this moment in time. I would say the governor's reserve is fully allocated between the services we need to provide. Therefore, I need staff to do that, as well as the funding that there is some that goes to the Office of Workforce Strategy, and the rest goes to boards.
The rest goes to boards.
Yeah, Erica, too, do you have available that right now?
We have descriptions from the PY24, our recent July 2024 vote from the Governor's Workforce Council. So there's descriptions of each line item that goes into the Governor's Reserve.
I have all that, Senator. I'm more than happy to go through that. And now I can quickly pull it up if you'd like. It's up to you if you want to do that or what came for questions.
Well, we're really, really short on time. But yeah, so we'd like free information about the governor's reserve. When you say that it's fully allocated, you're talking about for the biennium?
So when we get funding, we get it we can use it for 3 years. The boards can use it for 2 years, but every year, the budget, which is primarily formula-based, and it includes the base allocations that go out to the boards. It includes the governor's reserve, and it includes rapid response funds. All of that is formula-based. And as I said, when we drill down to that one specific little category, which is the governor's reserve, we also have activities that are required and allowable if they're required or done. All of that gets voted on annually with the Governor's Workforce Council. So I can give you history, year after year history on how that was all divided up, but annually it's voted on how it's distributed. There's not much room to play because a lot of it is formula based.
How much room is there?
Well, I guess that depends on priorities. Right now, it's all obligated and it all gets liquidated.
Yeah. Okay. So Dante, if you could just give us, whatever the current breakdown is here for this biennium, we're dealing with that'd be great. Okay. So I don't see any other hands raised. And we're going to go right on to your consumer. Oh, did I miss someone?
No, I said, did you want me to keep going through?
Yes, please. Consumer
okay. So the next thing I list is the governor's proposed budget suggests for us 9 staff, which would be used for unemployment insurance, and 1 staff person for the sick leave expansion, paid sick leave expansion. That was passed with no funding for us, and we've already had obligation with the legal department. It's a state-specific law, so I'm prohibited from using federal funds for that. So it is quite challenging to be attentive to that bill and that law without funding. So he's providing for 1 FTE for that. The 9 FTE for UI on the second page of our document, I've given you a whole lot of detail about where the need would be. The Unemployment Insurance Consumer Contact Center, that is one area that we are much in need of additional staffing support. I've highlighted a few things there. We get about 24,000 customers each week trying to access that. We have now just finishing our busy time. The wait has been between 5 to 15 days, just even to get an appointment to talk to somebody at the call center, which is not the customer service that we are proud of, but it is the way it is. We've had at one point in time, as many as 320 temporary staff. Those were all funded by federal pandemic-related funding. Since we have just an example, 2 years ago, we had 154 staff on that call center. We now have 88. So we are looking for additional support there. The other thing that we would do, the other place that we would use these staff, if you so chose to provide them, would be the integrity unit. Really, really important. Fraud since the pandemic has been absolutely out of control. We've done as much as we can with automation. Again, that takes funding, but we've done as much as we can using federal funds for automation. Still, since the pandemic, we've actually prevented $4.6 billion from going out the door, 431,000 fraudulent applications. We're now getting fictitious employers. It's kind of a whole new scheme that's been popping up in the last 2 years. 1,072 of those fictitious employers actually signed registered as if they were companies. And we prevented $144 million from going out to fictitious employees of these fictitious companies. So that's something we really are in need of additional support. Again, our staffing has dropped dramatically because the federal funding from the pandemic has dried up. The next
hold on, Senator Austin, do you have a question?
I do. I have a question on the unemployment fund, trust fund. Are we still borrowing money from the federal government on this? And can you give us a four tranche look at the unemployment trust fund based on the amount of money that will be deposited into it or anticipated to be deposited into it from employers?
Yes, I have provided that, Billy. If you could go to page 9. I have all of that information for you. I also attached to this main document, Billy's going to page 9, or I'm sorry, Claudia. I've attached an interactive spreadsheet in addition to this. So this is a screenshot, but you've got an interactive one where if you hover over some of the red triangles, I've got notes in there for you. So what this is showing you is that right now, we are continuing to borrow at times. We don't borrow every week or every month even because of we have quarterly taxes and revenue that comes in, but we have yet to have the point where we can stop borrowing. We do predict that that won't be until probably 2028, 2029, unfortunately. The reason for that is that even though we have low unemployment, we have the loan itself continues to kind of have this compounding interest and even gets into a point where there are penalties. So it keeps on going for a bit. We also had some legislation that was passed, Public Act 21-200, 22-67, and 21-5, all of which were pro-employer and wonderful, but they mean that we have less revenue for a few years until we build back up. What else can I say about this? There are some key dates for the unemployment insurance loan. Those dates are November 9th and January 1st. What we've been successful at doing is that through the legislature and the governor, there was $30 million in ARPA funds that were put into an account that we are able to pay interest on the loan.
Wait, somebody needs to mute. Thank you.
Annual interest on a loan is an expense of the employer. What you all have been able to do is to defer that and pay that cost for the employer. So every year thus far, that money, the employer has not had to pay the interest on the loan. That money is available and will continue to pay interest on the loan through 2026. But starting 2027, we won't have that source unless something else is done. So this is a very confusing spreadsheet. I am more than happy to have another work group where we go into detail on this if you'd like. But remember that in addition to this page 9, you've got an interactive spreadsheet with additional notes on it that are attached.
Okay, and relative to the striking workers bill, what's the liability there, if at all?
I honestly don't know if we have put together a fiscal note on that as of yet. I think that we have, oh, you know what? I'm remembering now. So for that particular one, Daryl, tell me if I'm wrong on this, but that previous year, we had an estimate, our vendor as well as our staff did a level of effort on making the change in our Reemploy Connecticut system to be able to accommodate that bill. It would be a one-time charge to get that automation established. It previously was estimated at $197,000. We are in our conversation with our vendor about a new contract because the contract's expiring. I expect that it would be at minimum the 197, at maximum, even if we end up having like a 15% increase in our contract rate, it would be about 250. It's just that one time to program it. And then after that,
okay,
no additional.
But the question is, how would it affect the fund?
That would all depend on if there were usage. Yeah.
And that's what I'd like you to try to think about and give us an answer on that. The last question I have is relative to federal workers on unemployment. Do you process the federal workers on unemployment and pay them out of this fund, or do they have to go someplace else?
The federal government, just like the state government, is what we call a reimbursing employer. That means they don't pay regular taxes, but they do have to reimburse dollar for dollar when one of their employees collects unemployment insurance. The problem that we, kind of are foreseeing and hoping doesn't happen is that, the federal government will be responsible for reimbursing. We hope that happens. The challenge right now is, we have to, when someone applies, we have to give that opportunity for the employer to protest if needed, and often need to get additional information from them. We are anticipating that could be a little bit problematic and delay, if anything. So it does get very complicated because if the federal government doesn't respond.
But the answer is that you're the responding entity to somebody.
I am.
They
No.
apply. They apply through you.
They apply through us. Like
that's what I'm trying to find. That's what I'm trying to find out.
Oh,
they apply.
Yes.
That's my question.
Yes, I'm sorry.
I get that we're going to have a problem with the federal government. I get that. But I just wanted to know, anybody calls an office, they applied through you.
Yes, and you know what, Senator, we have on the front page of our website, we put something right up there. If you're a federal employee, federal contractor, it links to special information that we've laid out because their claims are a little bit different than others. So we have all of that. Plus on that same page, we link to job opportunities, how they can look for additional employment, fairs, job fairs, recruitments, DAS's website. So we've put it all together for them. To make it very easy on the website. I think I should also say that as far as the impact to the trust fund, the claims will be paid out of that and then it's to be reimbursed. So it, I guess yeah.
So you could approve the fund, the claim being paid out. You're just going to have to wait to get paid back from the federal government.
Yes, that is correct.
And how many people from the federal government have applied so far? Do you know?
I'm actually not able to speak to that in a public venue because it's speaking about the employer's case, but I could share that with you with your confidentiality agreement offline.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, it looks like we're on page 2 here. We gotta summarize as best we can.
Okay, so we're back to page 2. That's all about how we would use the 9 staff if we were able to have additional help and support. I did then on page 3 give you information about the temporary staff that we just had, that we had end dates for because the federal money ended. Also, the next thing on page 3 is we go into, you were asking for detailed information about appeals, and we have provided you so much information about appeals. I've given you exactly how the process works, where each step of the appeals is housed, whether it's in our agency as the administrator, whether it's in the quasi-judicial agency of appeals, whether it goes to the courts, and then every single level we've given you details on backlogs, number of days wait. So hopefully those 3 pages will help you answer any of those questions. I don't know if you want me to slow down or keep going.
No, and I'm just, if anybody's got their hand up here. Yeah, nope, go ahead.
Okay. On page 5, we've also responded to a question that was about Connecticut Youth Employment Program. We've given you funding allocations from 2010 straight through 2025. I know there was concerns and questions as to how much has been given annually, so we provided you with all of that. We also noted whenever there was any kind of a holdback, give you information about the program itself, eligibility criteria. In 2024, with the $5 million, we served 2,574 youth. We do, at this point in time, predict that the 2025 allocation, which was doubled, we have about just over 3,600 youth enrolled. It continues because it's year round. So already thus far, there's like a 40% increase from that additional allocation, but it could continue to grow. We then put for you in a chart the 24 and 25 annual allocations to each one of the boards so that you could compare what they did receive. Again, remembering the base amount was doubled for the SFY 25. We then went on to give you the information about the $500,000 that was allocated to this program through ARPA funds. And then beyond that, totaled for each board in SFY 25, how much they would have between the regular program, the ARPA program, the DCF allocation, the court supported services division allocation, and then workplace in particular had some additional grants. So that's all CYEP. I don't see any hands either. So the next question, Senator Hartley, was yours specifically about enhanced wage reporting. I've given you the public acts, both of them. I've given you the original one, which had the 15 or so elements that were required to be reported in, and then the amended version in Public Act 23-4, which it dropped down to 3, and it was permissive with a may. I've provided granular detail on the staffing and the fiscal note that we had for that program, because you'll remember that the governor's budget puts it in and then repeals the statute, puts in the funding for 26-27, but then repeals the statute and then again takes that funding out later on. Again, with this page 8, it is teeny tiny. I know that. I've provided you a large spreadsheet as an attachment. The next page, page 9, Representative Nathan asked about the UI Trust Fund. I think we just covered that with Senator Austin, but happy to say more about that if needed.
And I am taking over for Senator Hartley. She makes her apologies. She has a presentation she has to get to by 6 o'clock in person.
Oh,
so,
okay.
So happy to keep going. I don't see any hands right now, so just keep it
All
rolling.
Right. Thank you. Page 10, just some specifics about the Unemployment Insurance Trust Fund as far as a narrative. We've administered $11 billion since the pandemic began in March of 2020. We've borrowed $1.6 billion. We've repaid 1.5 billion. Those numbers are not something that you can just add because the loan itself has interest and it has, you know, continued kind of compounding as it goes on. But the spreadsheet, if anybody has questions and want us to go through that at another time, happy to do that. Then went on to what is listed in our line item budget as WIA. It's the new WIOA. It was changed, the name was just changed in 2014 when the act was reauthorized. I've identified for you why in the governor's budget, you'll see that this year of SFY 25 has $49 million, but it's actually because there's some carry forward. As I said before, that is a grant that we are able to use for additional years, but it's allocated and granted every single year. So you'll see why those numbers are a little bit different than what you had in the OFA version of the budget. That confused a little confusion last time. You'll see that unfortunately for program year 23 to 24, there is a drop of about $2.8 million for those funds. Because there's formulas that distribute it. It is felt by all of the boards as well as the agency and others. And SFY 20, well, I'm sorry, program year 25, because the Fed's years are different than ours. So they start their year in October and go through September. So unfortunately, we don't get the new upcoming allocation until our session is over. So each year we have to estimate, and that's what you see in the budget is the estimate, and then there's reconciliation that is done along the way. Page 11, Representative Dathan, you asked for a lot of information on the long-term unemployment program, which includes some other programs within there, like Youth Build. There's Building Better Futures and others. So we gave you details because each one had annual allocations and then they had ARPA allocations. And then within the long-term unemployment, there's also regular P2E. There's the platform to employment for vets. There's military to machinists. There's, you know, so there's a whole lot of those. That pretty much is all on page 11. And then I just kind of decided to keep on going and I gave you more information on some of the other programs that are also within that line item structure. And then the final worksheet or spreadsheet, I should say, attachment that we have is actually like in all of the ARPA programs that came through us and information and details on them, just so that since we were only asked for 2 of the programs, I just thought you might want more and it was faster to give it to you now.
No, and that's really helpful because obviously ARPA money isn't allocated for in the budget, so it's very hard for us to know what people are losing or, you know, without them telling us, or it's just hard to keep track of all of it across the department. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, I am seeing no questions at this time, so we can keep going. Oh, wait, Representative Dathan.
Oh, I thought mine is not here, so I'll wait till she goes through everything.
Okay, great.
Oh, I think I went through everything, Representative Dathan. What did I miss?
I thought you did too, but I may have missed it. Was my question about the software. I know we've been working on unemployment insurance modernization of the sort of software platform. And you had mentioned in passing earlier that there was some additional work that needed to be done. Just to make sure that I'm fully clear, we've got that that whole digitization exercise that was happening a couple years ago. It's 100% complete now?
No, and I don't think it ever will be.
Okay.
So it's called Reemploy Connecticut. And that's where we went from, you know, having the old IBM and green screens and all that to having our current modernized system, which is like all one instead of 5 of them duct taped together. We are well on our way and we are administering the program through that. But as I'm told is typical with something of that scale, it's usually about 3 years before you kind of get where you need to be with everything that was part of the original kind of spec requirements, right? We also have been in a consortium and there's 2 other states. And so there's like a core program. And then when we have different laws than them, we have to do the Connecticut specific stuff. So we continue to be fully active every day. A team of folks are working on, and you know, whether it's enhancements or adjustments to the current program. And then anytime there's legislation passed and we have to account for that, we have to amend it again. So I don't think it'll ever stop. We are really, including myself and Deputy Jasinski, we are very, very involved in meeting with our vendors regularly. We just had them visit our agency from out of state last week. We're in the process of having to negotiate a new contract because the contract ends December of 2025. We're, I don't think
ongoing, but compared to where we were, I think we had talked about it within the session that compared to where we were in sort of spring of 2020, where we were midway through and then it kind of all pear-shaped, and then we're to a good stage that everything's being managed through the system, but software upgrades are happening as appropriate, and you would expect for a software product this size. Are all those costs included within the sort of your sort of budget numbers? Are those capital costs?
Well, that too is a complicated answer. So,
sorry.
No, that's okay. I like this. As you just mentioned, we had like a 15-month moratorium while we were getting through the pandemic, right? So no, we are running, we are doing extremely well. And the original cost that was scoped out way back when they started in like 2013 to plan this and 2016 to sign off on it was like $70 to $80 million that the state would have to pay on our own system. The reason we got into the consortium, or one of them, is with the other states, a deferred cost. So it has now cost $25 million for the state of Connecticut to be where we are. And we were able to secure an additional 25 million or 30 million from the feds for modernization, because we were part of a consortium, and that was an initiative that they were promoting at that point in time. Beyond that, we apply for different grants. So for instance, the program that was scoped out and the requirements prior to the pandemic when it comes to integrity were very different from what they need to be right now. So we have gone after and secured additional grants for being able to update our system for integrity. So we keep on trying to get additional grants for that. But it is it is something that, you know, is a continuing, we have to watch, right? We have, there's not a line item that comes to us for this, I should say, and not through the feds and not through the state. So, yeah.
Okay. That's useful to know. I just was trying to get an idea of where we were, and I think we talked about it in the main session, but I didn't see anything in the work session, and I wasn't
sorry, we missed that question. And
no, it may have been you answered my first question, and then I went and thought about it a little more and came up with some new and improved ones. But thank you so much, Commissioner, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'm not seeing any other hands at this time, so I know we are probably over time at this point. But we really do appreciate all of the wonderful answers and the wonderful work that went into putting these answers and documents together for us. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just offer that if there was the interest, I think specifically for the unemployment trust fund cash flow spreadsheet, which is confusing, you know, we'd be happy to do kind of a little sidebar working group on that if that was something that you wanted.
Okay, we will keep that in mind for sure, because I have a feeling we have some folks who might be interested in that.
Okay.
Madam Administrator, is this it for us today?
That is it.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. We really appreciate your participation. We appreciate all the documents, and thanks for hanging in past 5:30. We really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, and have a wonderful rest of your evening.